Alright, you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Once again, let's talk about Moribito Guardian of the Spirit. First and foremost, so what did you think of the story, kinda as a whole?
As a whole, I really liked it. I thought it was action-packed, but also showed daily life. It showed some elements of danger and excitement, but it also kind of showed some nice hominess and day-to-day life and just learning as you went. And
Had a mix of kind of high moments and low moments.
yeah, I liked that. It had a mix of real life. It had a mix of the supernatural.
The fantasy, magic stuff.
Right, you got to kind of see a nice mix of both of them. And it did enough to keep me wanting to watch more. Watch the next episode, see what was coming.
It wasn't such a monotonous story that it's kind of like each episode is staying the same thing.
Right.
It had its own sort of little senses of progression.
Correct. It didn't do too heavy on the history part, the emperor part, or I shouldn't say the emperor, but the royal family. It wasn't so heavy with history that you got bored with it.
Yeah, there wasn't a front-loading of information kind of explaining what every little detail of going on, like, here's the royal family in charge, how many in their lineage.
Right.
It just started with a character, and they showed up in this country, and they're gonna do something.
Right.
Speaking of, did you want to try covering any other topics, or do you want to get right into characters?
Let's go into characters.
Okay, so let's go into our main character, Balsa. So what did you think of her?
I had to warm up to her. I wasn't quite sure about her at first because she was dressed like a man. She fought like a man. Now granted, I was happy she was fully dressed.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy that she wasn't wearing band-aids for clothes like some anime, but
Chainmail bikinis and all that.
right. I was happy that she was fully dressed and she represented herself well, but she just didn't seem real feminine to me. She seemed more masculine, and I couldn't tell, is she trying to be a guy? Is she trying to fit herself into a man's world and be like a man? I wasn't sure what to think of her at first, so it took me probably maybe into the second episode or so before I was kind of getting invested in her. I wasn't quite sure what to think.
Kind of hard to relate to her
Yes.
off the bat.
Yes.
But that's kind of the beauty of her, is that we sort of get her introduced as our first character, but just like how nothing is actually explained to her, we're not told things until she actually begins to open up.
Right.
We see how she kind of is based on her actions, but it isn't really until she actually sort of gets her mission in the show that we start seeing who she truly is.
Right. She just at first appeared real cold, kind of stoic. You know, it was a hard read for me. I wasn't quite sure what they were going to do with her, but then the beauty of it is as the story unfolded, her character kind of bloomed, and there was you know, you could see that there was more behind her. She wasn't just a girl that was fighting. There was a purpose behind it, and it's a reason for her mannerisms.
Yeah, it's not the trope that we're running into now where it's the girls doing everything the guys can do while being a girl.
Right.
It's more so that she earned skills and became competent in order to live the life that she's been living, not necessarily that she's trying to emulate the lifestyle of a man. Now, a lifestyle of someone that she respects.
True.
But that's not to say that she's using brawn to overpower brawn. She's using, you know, like her agility, flexibility, the extra range that her spear provides. She's using her body and wit in order to fight men.
Right. And we find out later on, but it's survival. She's been in survival mode since she was 6 years old. So she's had to learn these things to stay alive. So it's become more or less second nature to her to defend herself. wherever she goes, just to stay alive and keep going from day to day. And so she hasn't really learned maybe the softer parts of life, the softer parts of a woman's life, the more feminine parts. That wasn't taught to her. That she didn't know that. She's in survival mode, so she's doing what she knows. We just don't know that yet. That part of her story isn't revealed to us, but it slowly comes about, and that's okay.
Especially since, for those who don't know, the Moribito Guardian of the Spirit series, this anime was based off of the first book in the book series, in which there's 12 books in total. And technically, was it the first 2 light novel books are translated into English, but that was back in 2004, 2006?
Yeah, early.
Something like that. Basically, since those 2 books didn't do too well, the other 10 books up to this date, I think it's like 15 if you count like side novel stuff, because those first 2 books didn't do so well, the rest of them haven't been translated. So I ended up finding a nice little site that happened to have all of those books, but translated in English by fan translators. And I'll do a link somewhere.
I'm glad you found them, because after watching The Guardian of the Spirit, it makes me want to keep reading the books.
Especially with what we've seen in what would be book 2, how it kind of covers more of Balsa's past, which we touch on in this show, but it goes more in depth about basically wrapping up some loose ends, which she didn't realize were there.
I like that they introduced a new story, but yet they're still fleshing out those main characters
and continuing it.
Yeah, which I love. I love that, so it's very interesting to me.
But speaking about this story, we may as well talk about our second main character, Chagam. What'd you think of him?
I like Chagam. He seemed kind of like a naive little pampered boy at first, but you know
noble
what?
Boy.
Yeah, but he's from the royal family, so he's going to be pampered. That was his life. That was all he knew. And so at first, it seemed like Balsa was pretty hard on him, but yet she had to be, because of their basically running for their lives. She knows what that's like to live in survival mode, and she basically had to then teach it to him to keep him alive. And not only is she fighting for his physical life, she's fighting for his spiritual life, because he has this egg inside him that they don't know what it's gonna do, and they don't know if it's going to kill him too, besides
and when exactly it's going to start affecting him.
Right, so she's fighting physical people in the real world, she's fighting spiritual things in the supernatural world, and so she's a bodyguard all around for him, trying to keep him alive, and so she's got to be on her guard. Now, they do show some softer moments too, which I like, that she has some maternal instinct in her, which is nice, and she starts to kind of treat him like a son or a closer family member or something. I think she really starts to like him as a person, and he
begins to kind of warm up to her.
Yeah.
Almost kind of like a mother figure.
Yeah.
Though obviously not a replacement for his actual mother, who was the one who sent him out in order for his life to be saved.
Which he understands. He's old enough to understand that, which is nice. But I think he, appreciates Balsa as a caregiver, which, bodyguard, yes, but she's warmer to him than I think than Jigoro was to her. I think she's warmer to Chagam. So they have a little bit more of a bond.
What do you think about kind of his character arc, from kind of being on the run to, having to live with her while hiding out for a while?
I like the progression. I like that starts out pretty naive and pampered, unaware of things, which he would be in a palace. And he learns what real life is like. He learns how to take care of himself, food, money, jobs, things like that. He learns that his opinion isn't always the right one maybe so much with the other little kids in the village, which is not a bad thing. I'm sure in the palace his opinion went no matter what it was, and this was kind of nice that he, you know, maybe got a little pushback or a little somebody to, you know, not always go with every idea of his. He probably had never made a friend before, so making friends was new to him. So it was nice to see his progression of learning about real life, and I think he even learned some things about himself, learned what he could do, what he was capable of.
That's another thing that's pretty interesting, is the fact that he's always learning. It's not like he ever said, like, I don't want to learn that to one of Balsa's lessons. Right. Because Balsa has been teaching him a lot during the journey too, like living in their watermill house.
Yeah.
And eventually when they end up holed up in that cave, there was points where Chagum, you know, he was moody or, you know, not in the best of spirits, but he still sat down and learned.
That's true. That's true. He was always cooperative. He knew he had to be to stay alive. You had to work for your food, for your living, and he never understood that before. So it was nice that he was able to see the real world and experience that in his life.
And while faltering a little bit here and there, he sort of understood what his duty was as...
That's true.
Not just, you know, second prince of the royal family, but, you know, as this possessed by a water spirit egg holder.
Right, that's true. That's true. He realized he had a duty, not only with the egg, but, also his country. So it was kind of a coming of age for him, kind of a growing up. I think he left the palace a spoiled little boy, and he came back more of a young man, kind of grew up.
Well, but even then, I'm not even sure how spoiled you'd say he is, because back in the palace, when the second empress took Chagum in front of Balsa and was asking/commanding Balsa to take charge of her, and he was just, you know, slowly waking up and then saw that his mother was irritated, he got mad at Balsa, but it wasn't necessarily for his own sake, it was for his mother's sake. So a lot of his spoiled bratness is just from him trying to uphold his position of second prince.
I guess I don't mean spoiled so much in he was a little brat, but just the example of his stomach had never rumbled before. He had never felt hunger. He had always had food brought to him and provided for him. So his needs were met before he even realized he had a need. He never thought about where that came from. You know, where food came from, having, you know, a bed to sleep in.
The standards of life.
The standards of life. He had always had everything more or less catered to him, so he never thought about how anyone else lived. And so it was nice to see him kind of go out into the real world and see how most of the other people live. So it was kind of nice to see him experience different things and have his eyes opened. And I don't think he seemed to appreciate it too. He didn't seem to be a snot about it. He seemed to appreciate being able to experience the real world and see what that was like firsthand.
So with that said, let's move on to the next character, Tanda.
I like Tanda. He's what Balsa needs. He's good for Balsa. He's more calm, more laid back. I mean, he's got the healing in him, which is
He'll stitch up
good.
all our injuries.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, I like him. I had wished while we were watching the episodes that they would have kind of fleshed out Tanda and Balsa's relationship a little more. I felt like there was something there. But now, knowing that there's other books coming, there's plenty of time to go into that deeper. So I'm excited to read more about that, and I hope they have a closer relationship coming. But I like them. They're good as friends. They grew up together. They work well together. I think it was really cute when they were sitting in town eating with Chagum, and they were looked upon as a little family. I thought that was really cute.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting how it's not just two teenagers or 20-year-olds who've known each other for a little while and then are thinking about getting together. Balsa mentioned at the beginning of the show that she's turning 30 this year.
Yeah.
Tanda, I think, is similar age. You know, at least 30, if not 31, 32, whatever. And they've both had their journeys in their 20s and their excitements, and now things are kind of slowing down, and now they're kind of debating the idea of like, well, is it about time to settle down?
Yeah.
even though there's still some journeys to be had.
That's true. But maybe they kind of want to have journeys together. They kind of think about one another and kind of miss each other, and it's nice. I think they would be good together, a good team.
So with that said, let's talk about Tanda's trainer, Torogai.
Torogai. I wasn't sure what to think of her at first. She just seems kind of like a
Crazy bug-eyed woman.
yeah, a crazy old lady that's pretty frail. But she surprised me. She showed how strong she was, and I bet you she's even stronger than what they showed. So I like her. She's funny. She doesn't hold anything back. She says it like it is, and no holds barred, and I like that. She's cute. I like her.
Now, a part of her character, it's a little confusing because she's an expert on the spirits, in which some of her explanations of things about the spirits, it makes sense that they're coming from her, but her explanations may not necessarily make sense on their own.
That's true.
So to speak.
That's true. And it's hard to tell, is it we don't understand it because we aren't shamans? Or is it just to leave some mystery about the spirit world that not everybody, we
Gets
can't
to
all
know
grasp?
about.
Yeah, exactly. Or is it something that's going to be more explained in coming books? I wasn't sure what to think of her. She's a shaman.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had, I think, Shuga with the white long hair.
Yeah. A star reader.
Which I don't know. I thought that was astrology at first, but it seems, I don't know if it's more of a teacher. I wasn't quite sure what the differences are. And then you have Tanda, who's the magic weaver. So I'm not quite sure what the differences are, or if they're like levels of knowledge.
It seems like Shuga and the star readers, they're literally like reading stars, in which it's not really them doing magic, so to speak. It's them trying to predict the future based on position of the stars.
Okay.
Which would be, like more of an astrologer, astronomy role.
Okay.
In which then when we find out about this, I don't know, bank vault of stone tablets of information about the history of the country, I don't know if they'd be closer to like a historian scribe type of situation. But they don't seem like, in fact, I don't think I've seen any of the star readers like actually use magic in the show.
That's true.
So to speak.
That's true.
The only major magic user we have is Torogai,
right,
in which she's able to fight off those two assassins on her own.
She's strong. Yeah, she's strong. And she didn't seem like she put in a ton of effort, so she's probably a lot stronger than that.
Yeah, smart enough to know only how much force to use to whip these young bucks and knock them out compared to having to actually kill them or anything.
Right. And I hope the bunny in the hat gets explained somewhere. What
the little bunny rat thing?
What that is. It's cute. Or maybe it's her little trope. I don't know, but the little bunny's cute.
So in which case, let's move on to Toya and Saya.
They're so cute. My only issue with Toya was I kept getting distracted with his buck teeth. I mean, it's probably to show maybe youth, maybe some financial,
more of a commoner, kind of.
Yeah, he's more of a commoner, doesn't have a lot of money, but I like they're scrappy. They are young, but they're making a life for themselves. They may not have much, but they were having a place to sleep, food to eat. They're figuring things out. He's figuring out how to make himself a business with the errand running, and they're taking care of one another. They're almost like a mini Tanda and Balsa. Not the same, but kind of with the growing up together. They kind of have that bond. And these two are sort of growing up, coming of age together, so they kind of have that bond too. A little bit brother-sister, a little bit friend, maybe a little bit closer as they age, but they kind of both have that bond, both of those couples.
I'd be curious if any of the future books would go back and actually talk about kind of their past.
I would like to,
because the implication is that I think it's mentioned that both of them are orphans, but it was it Toya tried to take Saya back or keep her from getting kidnapped into slavery or some such.
Okay.
And then it was Balsa herself that saves both of them from slavery.
Okay.
Which leads to both of them being two of the 8 people that she wants to save.
Sure. Yeah, I would like to read more about that, and I hope they do more of their backstory somewhere. In
Yeah,
the
and if they're
future
running a
books.
business, I wouldn't doubt if
Yeah.
they somehow get involved. But what's interesting about these two is how they're definitely they're more side characters, so they're not in the spotlight as much, but they always help the plot kind of move along.
They do.
So, like when they show up at the medicine hut, that they're kind of another foil for receiving information. They ask questions about kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
They also stand in for us who doesn't know anything, so they'll ask questions.
Right.
But it's not like they're completely clueless in their own right. They have their own skill sets where Toya, with him basically doing the errand running, he's able to get whatever merchandise or supplies throughout the town as he pleases. While Saya, she's more reserved, but she's able to help Tanda with taking care of Bolsa when she got injured
That's
back
true.
in the medicine hut, and she's more fulfilling a support role, so to speak.
True.
Kind of able to help Toya do more of the outside errands, the running around, while she kind of keeps things holed up and prepared for whenever they're needed,
Right.
so to speak.
And being their children, they're probably not going to get noticed as much in society, so they can kind of move around, and they're probably good information gatherers too. They can kind of keep an eye on what's going on, keep their ears open as to what's being said, and, you know, help Balsa and Tanda with, you know, information gathering as well as item gathering. So, yeah, good support system.
We'll have to see if they end up showing up in the future
Yeah,
at all.
I hope so.
In the books, anyway.
I hope so.
With that, so what do you think of the looks of the series? So, like the scenery, the landscape.
I think they did a good job. It's not maybe as sharp and immersive as the more recent.
Higher resolution.
Right, but you know what? They do a good job with color, and you know, you really get a good sense of where you are with the rice fields, and I really liked it. They really did a good job with it. It's not bland, it's not one colored, it's very immersive, and it's pretty. It does well.
They use a lot of different camera angles, especially like the opening shot of the series where you have, you know, she's walking over the mountain and you have almost like that eagle shot kind of spinning around and whatnot.
Right. Mm-hmm.
For, a show that came out in 2006. It's got very dynamic
Right. It's well done.
views and a whole bunch of different sort of settings and aesthetics.
Right.
Kind of reminds me of Ghost in the Shell, because that's in 2004, but I'd say that still looks pretty, you know, sci-fi and
Right.
kind of up-to-date
Right.
graphics, in spite of being made, you know, early 2000s
That's
too.
true. When they're going on those trails, on, you know, it's basically, you know, a little path on the side of a cliff. You can feel how rough and rugged and steep that area is. You know, you can you can sense how dangerous it is just being on those paths, much less being pursued at the same time. So no, I think they did a good job with it. The scenery is very, very pretty, very lifelike.
And they do a decent job of showing, because the whole season I think takes place over like 2 years. 'Cause
Okay.
they do a decent amount of showing the different backgrounds, like the leaves changing colors, showing passage
True.
of time. So they got a big variety of nature backgrounds. Because portion of the early show is like, okay, so we're in town, and we're escaping town, kind of to countryside.
Right.
That's countryside for a while, and then we get to a whole bunch of nature walking. But the
Right.
scenery isn't just the same green trees, the same brown
That's
dirt
true.
path, the
That's
same
true.
blue sky.
Right. It does vary. It's nice. They do a good job with it.
And the mountains too. We get a lot of mountain climbing
Right.
and views.
Right. And they really give you the sense of how steep and dangerous it is.
So what do you think of the magic, the fantasy side of...
I thought they did a good job with it. I liked when Tanda they were showing how he had 1 foot in the real world and basically 1 foot in the spirit realm, and how closely they were related. And I thought that was really interesting because, you know, the regular person cannot sense that spirit realm, and just reading about it, you wouldn't really get the sense of it as you would seeing it. So I really think they did a nice job with helping you to feel like how close that spirit realm
like
really
the two
was.
worlds are actually like overlaid with one
Right.
another.
Right, exactly. And that if you can go there, you can really experience them both and how close they are. And, 2 steps away and you're in another world. So that I thought they did a good job with it.
So overall, what did you like best about the show? What do you think would make you want to watch it again?
The storylines. I liked how they had action, but then they had everyday life, and then you had your action up front where they were running for their lives, but it wasn't that throughout, because if they would be running through for their lives for
26 episodes
26
straight.
episodes, you'd get sick of it. You get bored with it. So I liked how there was, action at the beginning, but then things calmed down. And then it was more focused on daily life, just kind of learning about daily lessons and things like that. And you kind of forgot. You thought they were safe. And just when you kind of get lulled into their safety, then
the plot picks up again.
The plot picks up and they're fearing for their lives again. So it keeps you invested. There's always enough where you're wanting to watch the next episode and see what else is coming. And I liked how they fleshed out the characters. Balsa wasn't just some crabby traveling fighting woman. She actually, everybody's got a backstory, and they kind of touched on these backstories. I'm hoping as we read the books they flesh out the characters even more. I'm looking forward to that. But I liked what they did enough that I would rewatch it. I think I would get more subtle nuances. I think I would pick up on smaller things watching it again that I missed the first time because I was just trying to figure out what the story was.
And I think another thing that's kind of nice about this show, or this season, what have you, the fact that it's sort of a full story in the 26 episodes. It's not like there's not that big of a cliffhanger hanging off at the end. There's implication of there's more stories to come.
That's
just
true.
like how there's more books to come in the actual series.
Right, that's true.
But the actual story with Chagum actually sort of ends,
right,
so to speak.
Right.
At least for now.
Right. I like that. So that you're not left wanting more or feeling like it's incomplete and left hanging. I like that. You feel like it is a complete story.
Otherwise, with the episodes themselves, it's not like there was much for cliffhangers that I remember. So we could have kind of picked up, watched a few episodes, and kind of stopped wherever we wanted.
That's true. You could take your time with it. You could watch it at whatever pace you wanted, or you could binge watch it. I think it's just a nice rounded story. It's really interesting.
Well, is there anything else that we kind of want to add about it? I think we covered most of the things, without getting too spoiler heavy.
Right. I just thought it was enough interesting between spirit realm and kind of the supernatural, and kind of touched on different things, and hearing about life and like royalty, what their life was like, and you kind of got a touch of different things. And I really liked it. It was interesting. It wasn't just history heavy where it was boring. You kind of got a touch of different people's lives and different perspectives, and I think it was well done. And I wish they would do more.
It was a nice story that conveyed a journey.
True. And it was a nice, yeah. And I liked not only the story of the coming of age of the boy, you also had the spirit realm part of the egg, and trying to figure out what that was, an egg for what. And so that was interesting too, what that was gonna come about. And I liked how when they were trying to help Chagum when he was going to that special spot at the end, how they had to eat that flower to experience that other world, and they're walking along. Those that ate the flower, suddenly they're underwater because they're in that other world, whereas Toro guy, they didn't have the flower,
so they couldn't see.
So they couldn't see it. So that was interesting too, how the worlds overlap and what you could see and not see. And so yeah, they did a really good job of blending the two together, and yeah, it was very interesting.
Is there anything else we want to add?
I don't think so.
All right.
I think it was really good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That was fun.